All right. So, what we have on the easel today, just to be different from all the other days, is an old life drawing that it was probably one that I started in class during like a 3 minute session, maybe a 10-minute session. I don't know how far I finished. Hi, Stellar. I don't know how far got in the classroom, but then I came home and finished the drawing fairly nicely at home and then said, okay, now what? And I don't really know what now, except that I want to do something with it. And so, kind of like every day. But if you're bored with this format and want me to do something entirely different, the worst that could happen is I will say no and come to your house and punch you in the face. But the thing that's most likely to happen is I'll say okay, and I'll do what you recommend. So I'll give it a shot if you have a thing that you were wishing I would do here, you know, as a as an art demonstration or whatever. Um, I just made her head a little bigger. She was a bit of a Neanderthal there, so I raised her IQ considerably. And I did the same thing today. Uh, John says, I can see her now. I've got new glasses. I can see now. Okay, great. And you like your glasses? Um, I only sort of like mine. I think I'm going to take them back and have them adjusted. Um, but very cool. You've been needing those for a while. Wow. Okay, it's the same thing I did yesterday. I um, walked over to my bookshelf, turned my back to the bookshelf, and kind of reached around behind me, grabbed a book, pulled it out, dropped it open to see what it was. So it was the Brothers Hildebrandt who did a couple of the very first Tolkien calendars way back in the 70s. And I opened it to this page, which is not a Tolkien picture; it's a Silmarillion picture, um, but they were still painting very, very like the Tolkien stuff. They eventually branched off and went in other directions with their work, but for a while, all of their stuff had a very, very similar look. Um, they did the so we're going to use that picture for inspiration for this thing. And about all I can say is, okay, she's facing away. There's a bunch of guys facing forward, but they're in a forest. So I think I'll put her in a forest, and I'm going to give her a costume similar to the costume that they're wearing. Um, and that's what I'm going to do for now. Uh, the Brothers Hildebrandt, back in the 70s, Tolkien's popularity was definitely uh, having a, a spike, and they were part of that spike. It spiked even further when they came up with the idea to do a Tolkien calendar, and as I understand it, um, they their idea actually they wanted to work for Disney, and so the idea was to basically put together a portfolio of work, but to have it be a theme of some kind. So they chose Tolkien and they did all these paintings as a portfolio to submit to Disney. Um, Disney rejected them because their work looked too Disney, from what I understand. They loved the old Disney um, films like Pinocchio and things like that. They loved the animation, and and the background cells and stuff. They were great admirers of that, and you can actually see that if you look at their Tolkien work and think of the classic Disney cartoons, you can pretty much see that in their work. And so they submitted it to Disney. From what I understand, Disney didn't uh, want some more guys that could do what they were already doing. So, or for whatever reason, they got rejected. And so they then said, well, maybe the Tolkien people would be interested in using this art for a calendar. I may be botching that all, but that's how I understood the story to have gone. And so that's what they did. They did a calendar, and that was a huge success. It was a success for them. It was a success for the Tolkien Foundation, and it boosted the popularity of the books yet more. And a great time was had by all. And I think they did at least one more calendar. I think they did several. I don't remember. I thought I would never forget stuff like that, but it was like 1977, and then the next couple of years, 78, 79, maybe. Yeah, I don't remember as clearly as I used to, but it was like that. It was something like that. Their biggest love was not painting pictures at the time. Their biggest love was, or their biggest desire was to make movies. And they did make one movie that I'm aware of, maybe a couple others, I don't know. One movie that I'm aware of, let me think. It was about an alien, Deadly Spawn. It was about an alien monster that, crashed to the Earth from a spaceship or a meteor or something, and wound up in this kid's basement, and he had to deal with it. Yeah, Deadly Spawn. There were like these worm things that were essentially hand puppets, with teeth, and so they did the special effects and all that for that, and they made the monster. And what else do I know about Hildebrand? Not a lot. There were Greg and Tim, and Greg, I believe, died back in late 90s, early 2000s. And Tim now does mostly pin-up-y kind of art, hot rods and motorcycles and pretty girls in bikinis and stuff like that. That's what he does. Really good at it. Really super realistic. It's lost all of the Disney-esque stuff that it had back in the day. So I'm going to give this girl a sword. Maybe like so. Maybe a dagger about like, maybe. I want to put it there. I mean, conceptually, I think that's a great place to put it. But given the lines of this drawing, it's not working for me. So I'm not going to put it there. I might put the strap for that sword about across there. This is vine charcoal, so I can change my mind a lot, and I will. And so yeah, it's gonna be a sword. It's gonna go about like yay. Their work did resemble Disney to some extent, but they also resembled NC Wyeth in a large way, especially uh, their landscapes and their trees, the bark on the trees and the leaves on the trees. If you take these figures out and just look at those trees by themselves, you kind of think of them as an NC Wyeth painting. And somebody's been talking to me. And John says got titanium frames, progressive lenses. Get the adjustment right in a few weeks, and showed the adjuster some fitting tricks she didn't even know. Yeah, well, you've been around the block a couple times, and you know some stuff. How about giving her a tartan scarf? Hey, maybe. Hey. Are you familiar with Angus McBride's work on the Middle Earth role-playing game series? Yes, I am. Um, and Sharon says, "Baby got back." Yeah, she do. She do. I forget which model this is. I actually don't remember. But she that was true to life. That much I remember. Certain things make an impression on me more than I mean, I remember her butt. I don't remember her name or her personality or anything like that, but I remember her butt. Um, so Angus McBride did a series of cool artwork for the Middle Earth role playing game put out by Iron Crown. Um, Iron Crown also made. It'll come to me in a second. Yeah, I forget things now. Um, it will come to me though. Another fantasy role playing game of their own world, their own creation. Rollmaster. Heavy, heavy, heavy on rules. Tons of rules. Which is what most people said it was really, really good, but it was just too damn much. But some people really, really liked it. Um, Mid 90s, they reissued Rollmaster with all new, more rules, bigger, heavier books. Angus McBride's work on the covers, not his best work, but it was on the covers, and my work on the interiors, along with a number of other people. Also, not my best work, but it was definitely my best work at the time. But yeah, it's one of my few published credits. So, Kurt, are you a fan of Iron Crown? You're a Middle Earth role playing game or Rollmaster? or just the artwork. That was me. Whenever we were playing games, I was just looking at the artwork in the books, in the magazines. It was at first a little bit surreal to learn, to meet the artists who had illustrated some of these books. And I used to sit and stare at them and, oh, that's so cool, and uh, just be really enamored of this artwork. And then now I know those people, and just like, oh yeah, I hang out with them at the convention when there's a convention, things like that. A tartan scarf, like around her neck, or around her waist. I just tied scarves around my waist when I was in the SCA. It just looked like a thing. Um, Back when I first joined the SCA and made costumes and stuff. I was strongly influenced by Hildebrandt's costumes and stuff. So pretty simplistic tunics, but sometimes a little wing thing on the shoulder, and sometimes little dags when I could get somebody else to sew the thing for me. And then I put uh, these metal studs in them. I made myself leather armbands with little metal studs in them. I got myself a pair of leather boots with little metal studs in them. But the general look was largely influenced by the Hildebrands, and also it's another artist named Walter Velez, I think, did the cover to the Thieves' World books, at least the first few. Tales from the Vulgar Unicorn. I forget. But those kind of costumes, very much like what I just described, and very much like what I made for myself. Possibly only very much like what I was attempting to make for myself. Whether I really succeeded all that well or not, I don't know. But it's what we were doing. That ain't right. See, one cool thing about this is if you want her to be wearing tights, then she's wearing tights. And if you want her to not be wearing any tights, then she's not. That's your choice. Okay. Something about the tartan over her shoulder. Tartans are family flags in quotation marks. Yeah, I know they're the particular weave is sort of a family crest type of a thing. I don't know much about it. I am Irish, but not recently. I'm not very recently Irish. Um, my ancestors were over here uh, back before the revolution. I got the first book and collection of his covers, and I have Iron Crown's Spell Lore. That's from Kurt. Um, yeah, Iron Crown. Iron Crown. Sometimes when you can't say anything nice, you just gotta not say anything at all. I'll be right back. Suffice it to say, about that time, I got a number of illustration jobs, um, mostly as a result of showing my work around and scattering business cards at Origins the one year that it was in San Jose, California. think it was San Jose. Yeah. Um, we enjoyed the convention. It was fun, but I wasn't there to have fun. I was there to get business. And at first, it didn't seem like that had worked, but after some time went by, I did start getting some phone calls from Iron Crown and several other companies, and I went to work. I became a fantasy illustrator, which was my dream ever since I was 10 years old, and I was in my early 30s at the time that this happened. So it had been, um, golly, uh, 20 years if you believe in that sort of math thing. And so I was really, really excited about how that was, I was finally pursuing my dream. And there was also a lot of uh, self validation. And, it's just like my parents had said for years that it was not a practical thing to want. And a lot of people just like, oh, in the 70s when I was talking about wanting to be a fantasy artist, people said things like, oh, science fiction and fantasy. I mean, that stuff's all been written. I'm sure they're not going to write any more of those things. Um, so there's not going to be any work for you. Those books are already out and published and rotting away on somebody's bookshelves, and that's it. There's not going to be any more of that. Why would anybody write any more of that? Of course, that was before Dungeons and Dragons, before video games, before all the cool movies, all of that. There's been a lot of science fiction and fantasy written since then. Um, but for me to finally have been a part of it was validating. So had a lot tied up in that, emotionally and financially. I did a lot of work, ton of work. Um, I was flat broke, and I mean, you can't believe how broke we were. Um, there were a few times in that period when, um, even though we had full time jobs, uh, we were scarcely making it from one paycheck to the next, and sometimes going hungry, for days, for half the week before the paycheck come in, and it was tough times. And so in the midst of all those tough times, I did this work for a bunch of companies, had to go out and have high quality Xerox copies made of my pen and ink sketches, and couldn't afford it. I didn't have the money at all, period. And and to ship it, to put all the stuff in an envelope and ship it to the company, I didn't have the money to do that, period. So I was like collecting stuff around the house that I could sell to generate the money to make the Xeroxes and stuff an envelope and mail it to these people to fulfill my contracts so that they could pay me, and I could be paid for my things. And that was like, you know I had already sold all the music collection that I didn't really care that much about. All I had left at that point was the stuff I listened to, regularly, and so I was selling that. to generate enough money to just to send this stuff off to these people, and then they didn't pay me. Nobody did. Nobody paid me a dime, and they were really tried to call them. They were quite abusive and horrible, and about the only the saving thing was somewhere in there. Um, I picked up a job at Albertson's grocery store as a sign painter, and after 2 months of doing that, and my other job, I was a manager at a dollar store, assistant manager at a dollar store, and I was working for a lady who never ever missed an opportunity to tell me how worthless I was. She told me to my face that I was not worth a shit, and everything I did was shit, and it's just um, yeah, I wasn't worth my weight in shit, and of course she didn't do anything, so I had to do everything. Uh, so it was more. It had less to do with any quality of my work and had more to do with her trying to feel better about herself, I guess, or something. But anyway, um, so I got this job at Albertsons and it was completely different. The people were nice to me and they were very appreciative, and I was making all these signs, which is sort of art. I mean, not really. And then it was a complicated story, but suddenly somebody walks in and says, "Hey, can you draw?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And and they said, "Well, we need to, it was a big display. It was a big making cartoon characters and crazy, wacky stuff, cute bunnies and carrots with faces on them and dancing around and stuff like that. And I didn't want to do it. I was trying to pursue the science fiction fantasy. I wanted to be Frank Frazetta. I want to draw Conan with axe and blood and skulls and that's where I wanted to be, and it's like, I don't want to do bunnies and stuff, and then they pulled money out of their pocket and they're like, what do you need to get started? And I said, okay. And this at the same time that was happening, all these companies that I had sent all this work to, were being horrible, and so I pretty much abandoned for years the whole idea that I was going to be an illustrator or that I was going to do science fiction fantasy art. And I just became a sign painter and a retail graphics guy, and that went well. That went well for a long time. I actually made more money than I was at the other store, and I got to quit the other store. I didn't tell her anything nasty. I wanted to, but I just like I told her I gave her a 2 month notice. I mean, who gives you a 2 month notice? I gave her a 2 month notice, and I worked right up to the last minute, absolutely dedicated to the place. And I guess from what I hear, she still talks about me, probably still talks about me to this day as having been an absolute traitor and just screwed her over and left her flapping in the breeze. I mean, I found a nice replacement for me. I found a really competent lady that taught her my job, and I took care of things, took care of it. But never gave that woman a piece of my mind. I just said, see ya. Found out later that, of course, those companies, those role playing game companies, pretty much none of them ever paid anybody. That was pretty much how they operated all the time. I was talking to Larry Elmore one time. I told him that story, and he's like, "Oh yeah, they did the same thing to me." I was like, "You're kidding me?" He's like the, you know, the god of role playing game art, and he was fairly well known then, and they didn't pay him. It was just, that's the thing about all that is they only get away with that as long as they get away with it. Um, they it all ends when somebody takes them to task, and I did. Um, I called a lawyer. I talked about this a few weeks ago, I think. I used to be very paranoid and thinking, the system's out to screw you. They're all together, they're all in on it. And this happened to me, and it was a year after I was due to be paid. So they were 1 year overdue. Um, I called a lawyer, told him my story, and he told me everything I needed to do. He told me a letter I needed to write, word for word. He said, "I guarantee you, they're gonna pay you." When I asked him what I owed him, he just said, "Don't worry about it." And he said, "You can CC me on the letter, but and if you wind up going to court, then we'll talk. But you won't." And I didn't. He said, give him 14 days. You send a certified mail, give him 14 days, and say all these things. And so I did what he told me, and I got my money in exactly 14 days, certified mail, and never heard from them again. And I know, and all the other everybody else that wanted to hire me, I pretty much didn't hear from again for the most part. There was a handful of people who would call me, and I was pretty uppity about that time. Um, I said, "I want to do this kind of work. I want to help you out, but I'm the guy that gets paid." And they said, "Oh, we pay, and everything. We're going to send you a contract." And I said, "No, no, I'm the guy that will get paid. Okay. If your grandmother, okay, if paying me means you put your grandmother out in the street to fucking die, and I know that, you will write me a check. I don't give a fuck. Okay. If I do this work for you, you're paying me." Okay. And, I said, "I will take you to court. I've done it before. I will do it again. You will lose. I will win. You're going to pay me. If you're not ready to do that, if you're only got a budget to pay some nephew of yours in, Coke and Doritos, then hire your nephew and don't talk to me." And either the message got through or they just decided I had a shitty attitude. Either one, I don't know, and I kind of don't care. But uh, there were companies that I had that conversation with that I have never seen any product on the shelf from them. I've never seen their name on any book or anything. So I don't feel too bad, like I burned some bridge with a potential customer, because they don't appear to have been a potential customer. They appear to have been somebody that was going to get free work out of me while they dabbled in trying to be a game company, and then quit and did something else. I remember one guy I had done business with, nice enough guy, but this it was same time period, same. same package of things that had gotten me burned out. And well, it turned out his thing was a three-party thing, which I never would have agreed to if I had known. But he was like, "Oh no, I'm not going to be the guy paying you. This other company is paying you. They're just paying me to hire people, but they write the checks." Um, so I didn't. I was doing work and didn't know who I was doing work for, and I wouldn't have agreed had I known that. But I did the work. I never got paid a dime, and I was talking sternly on the phone with him, and he's like, "Well, I feel you, but he said my wife just basically had the same conversation with me, and I don't do games anymore. I'm working at my dad's insurance office or something like this. Or his father-in-law's insurance office, I think was. It's just like uh, he said, because this kind of thing has happened too many times. He said, I did all this work on the project too. I wrote the games and did all the hiring and people, and he said I hadn't been paid either, and so my wife told me that this was the last straw, and we're not doing it anymore. And so that happened. I think that happened all over the place. I think that kind of thing happened to a lot of people. So live and learn. It would have hurt me a lot more if it wasn't for Albertsons. If it wasn't for, I've got a soft spot in my heart for Albertsons. Um, the current company out there that's called Albertsons is not the same company. Okay, they've got the same logo, they've got some of the same buildings, they've even got some of the same employees, but they're an entirely different. And anything above the milk manager at your at your local store is an entirely different corporation. So, but I do have a soft place in my heart for that company because they really uh, they launched my art career. Not to put too fine a point on it, everything that I have done that has put money in my pocket from that point forward was because of them. Um, they gave me a job. I did work for them, just this one store, and after a while, because I had a background doing factory work, I worked really, really, really fast, and they weren't prepared for that. I remember one day they when well, I mean the day they hired me, I was just doing these little paper signs, and usually. And they said, "You may be expected to do as many as 100 in a week. Do you think you could do that?" And I just sat down and started working. I did one a minute. And I was, I mean, I used to do 400 patio doors in a day. It's like 100 little paper signs in a week was not really very intimidating. And so what I wound up doing is I wound up making signs for the whole damn Southwest Division. I did, you know, way more than any other sign painter ever did. And especially when when they found out that I was an artist, I had an airbrush and I could do all these really cool things that you do with computers now, but you couldn't then. And yeah, so it was just like I had this whole career just sprung out of the ground, and it was an art career, uh, and they still were only paying me, like a part-time worker's thing. The company was trying to fade sign painters out. Used to be a regular job, just like cashier and you know but they had sign painters, and they were trying to get rid of that because they were introducing a computer thing. And so I never made more than, I think it was $6 an hour. I think that was all I made, and I was never going to make more. So my manager was comfortable with me going off and working for Fry's and Safeways and Bashes and everything. So I went and worked for them, and I put together a full time job, better than a full time job. working for all over the place, and that's how I won contests and awards and stuff. That I mean, my work won the award for the store. I didn't get to keep the award, but I got a lot of income and a lot of self-esteem, self-confidence that had been kind of shattered by my experience with the role-playing games. So I was pretty happy about it. I'm still happy about it. And yeah, that's my story. That is my story. Um, so that all happened. That was early '90s, and then life moves on. Life moves on. They did put they did get a computer system, sign painting system, um, and at first nobody knew how to use it. I mean, I I had never touched a computer in my life, but I was willing to try it, and everybody else in the store was scared of them. So so I was still the sign guy for a while, but as everybody learned how to use it, they really honestly didn't need me. And so by that time, I had learned how to paint on windows, store windows, and restaurant windows, and that was an even bigger deal. So I moved on and up to that, and yeah, until all of that took about 22 years to live its life and fizzle out. And then I started doing this. I went back to the sci-fi and fantasy, but somewhere in there is just like fuck illustration. I'm not going to do illustration. I'm just going to paint and draw sci-fi and fantasy and see how that works. And so far, kind of cool. Kind of, I don't know. I don't really know. Apparently, I need to be stop doing this altogether and paint octopuses. That's apparently the thing that's really going to make a living for me. So that's bonus. You got bonus minutes today, assuming anybody's still here. And I'll be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Thank you all for listening to me drivel on and on. And I'll do it again tomorrow. See ya.